I hear this a lot. Sellers are still paying the buyer's agent, so why doesn't every buyer use an agent since they're not having to pay for it? But this statement is actually quite misleading. Here's why. Let's start with the premise that at the end of the day, all the seller really cares about is how much money they're walking away with when the sale is finalized. Now let's say you're a home buyer, you're shopping houses, and you find one that you like, and you find that the seller is offering a 3% concession to cover the cost of a buyer's agent. Sweet, right? It looks like the seller is paying the buyer's agent. But from the seller's perspective, they're just thinking, okay, we've just accounted for 3% more in our list price, and we know what number it is that we're trying to get to when all is said and done. But a savvy DIY homebuyer sees that offer of a 3% concession to cover a buyer's agent, and they say, wow, I don't have a buyer's agent, but because I know the psychology of the seller and that they've already made peace with a 3% concession, I can use that for my own benefit in negotiations. So a DIY homebuyer says to the seller, hey, I don't have an agent, so I don't need that 3% to go to my agent's commission, but I would like to use that 3% towards my closing costs or a 3% price reduction, or if it's a competitive market, to just say, hey, seller, you keep an extra 3%. My offer is now 3% more attractive than anybody who does have a buyer's agent. And what people with buyer's agents need to understand is that the cost of your agent is just baked into the price that you're paying for the home, usually with interest. So the idea that the seller is paying the buyer's agent, I think is really just a semantical sleight of hand, and I want to call it out. And I want home buyers to know that they can be more competitive and find financial incentives to learning how to represent themselves and skipping out on having a buyer's agent. Let me know in the comments below what other questions this raises. I know that this can be a bit confusing, and I'm trying to make it as simple as possible because there are a handful of different compensation arrangements. Some of those are really gross and disgusting. I've made videos on co-broker cooperative arrangements, which the DOJ is, I believe, going to obliterate in the near future here. But let me know what you think. I want to help people think through this well because, as I've alluded to, I don't like this misconception.